So let me think a little bit of what I want to say. One obstacle impeding the easing of the closure restrictions in Gaza are the Qassam rockets that the Palestinian militants fire into the Israeli neighborhoods to the north of the Strip. And these bring about Israeli military action into the Strip. And I hear, when I go to Gaza and I sit with my one of my friends who teaches at Al-Azhar University, and I sit with his wife and his kids who are from around that area of Beit Hanun, where these militants generally fire their rockets out of. Therefore, there's quite a bit of Israeli military presence there, either with their tanks or with their rockets, trying to stop them and hunt them down. They say that the lives of the people in Beit Hanun are very difficult because they are stuck between the two sides. They're stuck between the Palestinian militants who just wouldn't stop, and also the Israeli presence there. The Qassam rockets that are homemade, and they don't always reach their targets, and sometimes they fall within the Strip into the neighborhood of Beit Hanun, and they just like they injure or kill people in Sderot, the Israeli neighborhood right north of the Strip. They also injure kids and people within that neighborhood, and the people of Beit Hanun have just had enough, and they go to the militants, they say, and they plead with them to stop. But unfortunately, the militants say that somebody has to resist, somebody has to fight for their independence, and they understand that of course their lives are very difficult and so forth, but somebody had to fight for independence. And they say, inshallah, inshallah, God willing, one day they will stop. Unfortunately, Hamas government does not seem to be able to stop these militants either. Some of these militant factions are affiliated with Fatah, some of them are affiliated with Hamas. And recently there have been some talks mediated by Egypt that brought all these militant groups together and tried to persuade them to stop their activities and for a ceasefire with Israel. The ceasefire has been signed, and this was a positive development within the last 2 months in July. But it's a very fragile truce because unfortunately the Qassams haven't really stopped, and therefore Israeli authorities have not eased the restrictions on the movement of people and goods. So the militants threaten to end the truce because the closure hasn't been eased, and Israel threatens to end the truce because the Qassams haven't stopped. And all in all, it is the people who live on both sides who suffer a great extent.
What is peace building, and how is Catholic Relief Services involved in that process?
Peace building is a variety of activities that seek to prevent, reduce, transform, or help people recover from violence in all forms. That includes physical, structural, and cultural violence. And CRS model for peace building includes working for social cohesion. That means trying to build right relationships across ethnic, socio-political, economic, or gender divides that divide people. CRS also works in equity, which tries to address issues of people's participation in political life and in economic activities and good governance. And CRS seeks to do these through primarily partnering with church actors and civil society organizations throughout the world. It also seeks to empower church actors to enhance their work, to help their work in building a more peaceful and just society. That's pretty much it for CRS, peace building. CRS has a long-term commitment to peace building. We try to identify the local capacities for peace, which means that we look for the strategic people who can make things move, who can generate change, and strategic places that bring people together. And we try to identify programs, projects that are successful in bringing people together, in generating peaceful change and helping people cross across the dividers and helping reconciliation.
Now, Gaza is not the only problem-ridden area in Palestine. Can you explain some of the issues in the West Bank?
Some of the most important issues affecting the lives of the people in the West Bank are the restrictions to movement and access. This is part of a very stringent closure regime that Israel is imposing on the occupied territories. It has several elements. The wall is a part of this. Israel started building the wall in 2002 as an attempt to prevent suicide bombings. Between 2000 and 2006, I think there had been about 36 suicide bombings that took the lives of about 200 people. And to bring more security to its people, Israel started building the wall. Unfortunately, the wall is built on largely Palestinian land, and it's designed so that it connects some of the settlements in the West Bank to Israel. Other elements of the closure system are checkpoints, roadblocks, trenches, permit system, that Palestinians have to get permits to travel from any place in the West Bank into Jerusalem, for example. Other restrictions include, sorry. Do I have to start all over for that answer? Or can I just continue?
Just continue.
Okay. I think Israeli settlements in the West Bank are a major impediment to peace in Israel-Palestine. Currently, there are about 160 settlements and 90-some outposts in the West Bank. Outposts are a smaller form of the settlements, are just a couple of cabins that people come and start building on a hilltop in the West Bank, and they grow out to be settlements. Israel has set up an intricate access system that will allow the Israeli citizens living in the settlements in the West Bank to have access to their jobs or to their family in Israel. There is an intricate system of Israeli roads that the Palestinians are not allowed to travel on. To provide for the security of the settlements, Israel has also put up checkpoints around the Palestinian towns and villages that are close to these settlements. This might mean that the people living in those villages, the Palestinians living in those villages, have a difficult time reaching their olive groves where they generate their income. It also means that they have difficulty moving from one city to the other if they want to sell their products, for example. These are some of the difficulties that the settlement infrastructure and the Israeli closure system that's basically designed to provide for the security of the settlers living in the West Bank generate for Palestinians living in the West Bank.
In the end of the day, why should American students care about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
It is very important for Palestinian people that It is very important for the people in Palestine that the citizens of the United States care and know about the conflict in Israel and Palestine. This is primarily because of the weight that the United States carries in bringing about any kind of solution to the conflict. Israel gives a lot of military and monetary aid to Israel, and that helps Israel sustain some of the elements of the occupation that make Palestinian lives very difficult. Therefore, it's very important for them that the United States, the people of the United States know about their suffering and do something to generate change in their situation.
All right, well, thank you, Burcu, for taking some time and speaking with us today. Your answers are all very honest and informative. Once again, I'm Christopher Blake from Cabrini College. Thank you very much.
Great. We're going to take our way shot.
Okay.
Still sit there.